So we have with us today Alan Shedd. Alan's the Director of Energy Programs for Touchstone Energy Cooperatives nationwide. We also have with us Kelly Parker. Kelly's a professional engineer. He's the owner of Guaranteed Watt Savers with over 30 years of experience in energy efficiency programs such as this. Also have with us Kaylin Kelly. Kaylin's Commercial Industrial Marketing Manager for Western Farmers Electric Cooperative, and Kaylin is the lead engineer on the project of the development of the Touchstone Energy Home Program at Western for co-ops. So guys, let's kick this thing off. Alan, let's start with you. Can you explain to us kind of why Touchstone Energy even launched into this energy efficiency field and wanted to develop a national program?
Sure. Well, when we talk about Touchstone Energy and really who we are and what we are, energy efficiency is really at the core of what we do. Touchstone Energy is a national brand of electric co-ops, and our mission is to develop programs and products and services to help our 750 member co-ops across the country provide resources that help their member consumers have a more comfortable, more efficient life. Energy efficiency and managing energy costs are really at the core of what we do. Our Touchstone Energy Cooperatives have a core of dedicated volunteers that help develop these programs. Touchstone Energy has a residential energy advisory committee made up of experts from across the country whose business and job is energy efficiency, working with members. They've been key behind developing the program like the Touchstone Energy Home Program.
Okay, now if I understand correctly, Kaylin, you serve on that committee?
That's correct.
Is that right? Okay. It sounds like a daunting task. I mean, what type of challenges and hurdles do you have? I mean, very large geographic region, a lot of different interests. What were some of those challenges and things that you guys had to come up with this template?
Well, that you spoke right to the heart of what the problem is. We have a national footprint. Every state has different, code requirements, different ways of doing business. Co-ops have different priorities. So in developing a national program, it's hard to make a one-size-fits-all program. We've tried to strike a balance here between developing a national program with certain standards, but allowing the flexibility for co-ops to tailor it to their specific requirements.
Were there any other resources, other means that you and your committee used in its development of your program?
Well, absolutely. Nobody does work in a vacuum these days. There are a lot of high-efficiency home programs that have been developed over the years. We, of course, have worked with a number of those. Energy Star has a great program, but we focused on working with ResNet because of several things that brought to the table. The other thing that was, of course, instrumental in this is really relying on the experience and the common sense that co-ops who do this on a day-to-day basis and have been doing it for years, they've got that expertise and experience. They know what works in the field, and it's good to have a practical program that actually works for folks.
I mean, as you look at this, what did your team determine were the areas that you needed to focus on where you could get the biggest bang for your buck?
Well, I think that's a great way to look at it, Mark. When you look at how energy is used in a home, you need to focus on the biggest slices of the pie. And if I can bring your attention to this first slide here, this is a national average. Now, your results may be a little different, as you said, depending on what climate you're in. But in general, on average, the top users of energy in a home are heating and cooling, water heating, and lighting. On a national average, that's 66%, 2/3 of your energy is tied up in those things. So if you want to affect a change, focus on the big areas first. Obviously, heating and cooling is a big one. So digging in a little more, going on to the next slide, this is looking at heating and cooling loads in a house. What accounts for the biggest use of energy or the biggest slice of that load? It's infiltration. Infiltration is air leaking into the house in the winter, cold air coming in, or conditioned air in the summer leaking to the outside. By far, that's the biggest single slice that contributes to a heating or cooling load. So if we can do things to address that, from effective air sealing, we can have a big impact on savings for a comparatively low cost. Beyond that, then, looking at the slices of the pie, then obviously the next thing that comes into play is insulation, reducing heat gain or heat loss through walls and floors and ceilings, things like that. Then we can get into looking at walls, windows, doors, things like that. To address water heating loads, obviously there's more efficient equipment we can use, smarter construction of hot water distribution systems, using Energy Star appliances, using LED lighting. Those things all play a role in making an energy efficient home.
Kelly, I would assume then these same areas have a big impact on the HERS rating.
That's right. The HERS rating is kind of back up and say, what is the HERS rating? HERS stands for Home Energy Rating System. So it's a system. We look at everything from windows to doors to insulation, the types of insulation you put in, whether it's foam or fiberglass or whatever type. It all has its R values, and consumers are driven to think about houses and components in terms of R values. The higher the R, the better we like it. And that's a good thing. So the HERS rating looks at all of these components and puts it into a program. So, and then you evaluate each of these components into what's called a HERS rating, and it's an index point of 0 to 100. And I think that's very important for people to understand. The analogy that I would use would be when you go buy a car, one of the things people are very concerned with now is, well, what's the mileage? Well, who determines what that mileage is? And that's, an EPA rating. Well, the HERS rating is very much like that, except the standard is ResNet is the organization that set the standard, and it's a 0 to 100. So if you're at 0, you are literally using 0 energy in the annual usage of heating, cooling, water heating, lights, and appliances. So that's 0. 100 would be a house that's built to the 2006 energy codes. So you have this range, 0 to 100. So if I own an existing home, which might be 20 or 30 years old, that score may be 150, or it might be 200, okay? If I own a house built to the 2006 energy codes, then I've got about 100. And the program that you put together is based on the 2009 energy codes. That would be on a HERS index, depending on where you are in the nation, of around 85 on the HERS index scale. So, so the ResNet HERS energy rating system allows us to look at any home built in any type of construction, no matter where we're building it, in a nationwide program. If you're in Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, North Dakota, it doesn't matter. We can rate that home. And the people that do this are called raters. And there's over 5,000 raters around the country. And some of them may not, they're obviously more focused in larger areas, metropolitan areas. So if you're in a rural area, you might have to have somebody to drive to you to get your rating.
But these raters, this is a very standardized process, so their ratings would, I assume, come out very close.
Very standardized. And the quality assurance that goes with that, not only do you want to make sure that they're standardized in what they do in the programs, the computer programs they use, we also want to make sure that people are overseeing them with quality assurance. And that's one of the benefits of having a ResNet standard procedures and standardized methods, because you do have people that are overseeing what you're doing.
Alan, that brings to my attention something that you and I had visited about earlier. I found it interesting, Touchstone's perspective on the HERS rating. I mean, there's a lot of indices out there. It chose to go that, but part of that was the trade-offs and the things that it offers.
Absolutely. Again, looking at a national program, as you mentioned, we have different climate zones, different needs, different opportunities. Most energy codes allow you to do a prescriptive approach. Install this level of insulation, these types of windows, for this climate zone. Or they allow you to do a trade-off approach where you use a program like ResNet's RemRate software that lets you trade off perhaps more window area. I can install more windows if I insulate the house a little better, or in this climate, by using a more efficient heating and cooling system, that allows me to have a larger square footage and still meet the requirements of the program. So with a national program, having the flexibility that a rating system like hers provides gives us that flexibility for individual co-ops to meet the needs of their members.
So Kalen, from some of the basic understanding I have of our program, it kind of sounds like you're pulling some of the best of both worlds, the prescriptive side of this, also the HERS rating side. So let's talk a little bit about the program that you've put in place for our Oklahoma and New Mexico co-op members.
Okay. Well, what we've done is we didn't want to recreate the wheel, of course, since the Touchstone Energy Home Foundation has already been constructed and built by that team. We basically built off of that. The items that we specifically look at in Oklahoma, other than just energy conservation, is also the demand side management component of energy efficiency as well. So we've looked at 3 components within the Touchstone Energy Home program that will be able to be utilized by people in Oklahoma and our member co-ops in New Mexico. That will also involve the HERS rating as well, and we'll get into different levels, in a little bit. So we're building this foundation. There's 3 different categories, those specifically being stated, and not just looking at any one category. So we're trying to tie in together energy conservation with energy efficiency and demand side management so everybody can win.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, your areas of focus in this program would either be home builders or somebody that's building a custom built or anything. It really centers around the 2009 IECC.
That's correct.
Which you stood for what?
International Energy Conservation Code. And there's other codes that are out there, but we've chosen to go with the 2009 code. There's 2012 code, and also they're working on the 2015 code as well.
Why the 09 code? I'm curious on that.
Well, approximately every 3 years they come out with a new code. Prior to the 2009, of course, there was a 2006 code. Then, of course, there's a 2012, and they're currently working on a 2015 code. We chose to stay with the 2009 code because there's some items, some nuances within the 2012 code that we necessarily didn't want to follow suit with, such as like the 2012 code, it's mandatory that you have a blower door test accomplished. 2009, it's not. However, with the Touchstone Energy Home program here in Oklahoma and in New Mexico, with the HERS rating, you still have a blower door test. But when it comes to having a home built to the 2009 code, it may alleviate some of the home builders to say, oh my gosh, we don't want to have a blower door test done, even knowing we're still going to do a HERS rating test after the fact or during the process of building the home to the 2009 code.
So if I'm understanding you, you're trying to keep from getting too far ahead of the builders.
Correct.
In what we're trying to do within our states.
Right.
That are there. So you've taken a look at where they're at and where our state's moving, and then trying to not to get too far ahead of that curve.
We want it to be obtainable.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. Why have a code that nobody's going to build to?
That is correct.
That makes sense. This HERS rating piece, how is that structured into this, and is it just kind of like a second checkpoint for this, or what is its real purpose in our spec?
Right. Well, the HERS rating basically involves a ResNet person to come out and do a rating of the home.
I'm assuming that'd be an independent third party.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And I could defer to Kelly on that respect, but they come out at 2 different times during the construction of the home, and then they will come back after, the sheetrock is in, the insulation is up, all the air sealing has been done, the windows have been sealed, and they'll do another blower door test at that time, and they'll make sure that in the code that they will be equal to 3 air exchanges per hour at 50 pascals or less to meet the specific codes that we are looking at.
Okay. So I think what I'm understanding then is, as a member of the co-op and I'm building a Touch Energy home, my co-op's helping me get an independent third party to come in and make sure that I'm getting what I'm paying for. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct.
So that there's a separate set of eyes that, although I trust my builder, I probably wouldn't have picked him, but it's now a separate set of eyes. Kelly, that's an interesting concept. What do you see in that? How do you see that as something that fits into a program that you feel might be needed?
That's an everyday deal. And one of the critical issues is helping that builder understand we're not an enforcer. You, the consumer, are the one that's choosing to do this program. And so with this program comes certain requirements, and we're there to help you educate to understand that, well, for instance, this piece of material might go on the outside of your house. And this piece of material has very little R value. Again, we talked about R value. So, Mr. Builder, you can't claim this is an R12 when in essence it's really maybe a 0.5 because there's actual testing done on that. And so what we do is help educate that builder and help educate the homeowner. The homeowner says, I want a low utility bill. That's the whole point of this, is to have a low utility bill. Energy prices are not cheap, and they're constantly creeping up. And so the point is, the ultimate end goal is to get this person to have low utility bills. And so helping the builder understand that this has very little R value, but yet you might find a piece of more product on the outside of the house that has a, an R value of 15 or 20, if that's what you wanted to do. And so there's always someplace in between. And this is what we help, this is what we help the consumer to get to. And by analyzing the plans of the home builder, this starts at the plans.
Yeah.
I want to see those plans. We want to analyze them.
Try to incorporate more. Kaylin, as I'm listening to what he's saying and understanding a little bit about your Touchstone Energy program and some of the incentives that are offered through it, I would assume that that's beneficial for you as a co-op as well, the HERS rating.
Well, what we'd be looking at as far as the HERS rating itself, we want to look at different levels within that. And it is beneficial for the co-op because we're helping, well, first of all, we're helping out the environment by reducing energy consumption, and energy is only going to increase over time as individuals and co-op members are seeing today. So we want to help incentivize them to build their home more efficiently, and up to the autonomy of each of the member cooperatives that we serve, they will look at adding money to the homeowner or the home builder to build to these specifications for the HERS rating.
Okay, so if that's being done then, but I'm assuming Kelly's going to verify that the money that you've invested is showing up there then.
Most definitely.
So that in effect is really kind of a nice feature to the co-op as well. So it's not policing it, he's just verifying that the dollars that you've invested in energy efficiency as a homeowner and also as the cooperative are in fact showing up.
That is correct.
That makes a lot of sense. So Ken, while we're on incentives, I want to loop back to something you'd mentioned earlier about these levels that you've built into the program that kind of differentiates it from the original model. So explain a little about that and how it works.
Okay. Well, what we have is, like you stated, 3 different levels, and there's a gold, a silver, and a bronze level. We've already have an existing energy efficiency rebate program that specifically is involving with ground source heat pump and air source heat pumps. So we want to keep that in there on all 3 levels. However, the gold level, you have to have a specific HERS rating number, as we've discussed, and that number is going to be in the range of 49, equal to 49 or less.
So each level has a HERS rating level that you have to obtain,
Right.
and it also has to have some prescriptive measures
Right.
and things that you have to look in.
Good point. Each level will have the HERS rating. Each level will have the International Energy Conservation Code of 2009, and each level will have to follow the IECC code. And when you're looking at each level, they will have a different level of HERS rating number.
Is there anything else that differentiates, like the gold, silver, and bronze, like type of equipment, or is it just HERS rating and prescriptive?
Well, when you're looking at the gold level, you have the 2009 IECC, you have a HERS rating of 49 on the number or less, and then we also want you to be encouraged, because it's all incentivized to do so, and it's all up to the distribution member cooperative to follow these guidelines and tweak them and make them their own. So you'll also have the opportunity for the gold home to put in ground source heat pump with a de-superheater. That will make up the gold program, the gold certificate for the home.
Okay, so what you're really doing then is there's 3 components. There's the prescriptive part, which is the
Correct.
code. There's the HERS rating, and then there's a type of heating and air conditioning for each level.
That is correct.
Okay.
However, therefore, to go to the silver level, which is beneath the gold, of course, you're going to look at the same prescriptive measures of the 2009 IECC.
Okay.
Now you're going to be looking at a 59 HERS rating or less, and then we'd look at a high efficiency air source heat pump.
Okay, and then your next level would be a step down from that.
Of course, then you'd go to the bronze. Of course, you can go with a air source heat pump on that one as well, but the HERS rating, of course, is even going to be a higher number.
So what you're building is a tremendous amount of flexibility,
That is correct.
and it also sounds like you're incentivizing things that's probably in the best interest as you're going up the food chain.
Right.
That's probably in the best interest of the utility.
Right.
But you're also leaving it where a consumer can still buy an energy efficient home. And it sounds like you're encouraging someone to spend as much money as they can afford when they're building their
That is
home on
correct.
energy efficiency.
That's a very good point.
Well, I mean, understanding where utility costs are going, and we all know with the Clean Power Plan and the other things that are happening, energy costs could go up significantly. All you're trying to do is give people the ability to be flexible within what they can afford.
Right. And everybody has seen since the beginning of the year of 2014 that energy prices have increased. So you're going to build a home today, you want it to be energy efficient because you don't want to build it, you don't want to go after the fact and say, I wish I would have done it. But it's customized where they can build it to a certain level and feel comfortable moving forward that their energy costs will
It's
be low.
obviously cheaper to spend the money right up front if you can afford to do that.
That is right.
Now, Caitlin, I want to loop back and talk a little bit about these levels that you had mentioned before that's in this Oklahoma Customized to New Mexico program. If you would elaborate a little bit on these levels.
Okay, these levels are made up of the bronze, the silver, and the gold. And if you want to look at an entry-level home to be constructed to the bronze level, you'd be in the range of the 70, 75 range on the HERS rating, and then you'd have a entry-level heating and air system, typically an air source heat pump. And then, of course, in each of the categories, we would be looking at the 2009 IECC code.
Okay, so for each level, you have a prescriptive code that you meet.
Correct.
Then you have a heating and air conditioning equipment level.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have a HERS rating.
That's
So I'm assuming as you go up from the bronze to the gold, silver to the gold, the HERS rating has to get better as you go up.
That is correct. Or, and rather, it gets better, but the number becomes lower.
Okay, right. It's a lower number, but and so the same would be true. Basically, you're stepping through from your heating and air conditioning, which is one of the largest usage devices.
Right.
You're going from something that's just kind of code standard efficiency
Right.
to moving to something that's a higher efficiency air source in the silver.
Right.
And then you're moving to what in the gold?
To the gold medallion home, you would be looking at a ground source heat pump with a de-superheater, or rather a hot water generator. That would save a lot of energy, and of course for the member co-ops to help you incentivize, they're also looking at demand reduction as well.
So I'm assuming each level has varying levels of incentivization, maybe
That is
none, and I'm assuming that would be different by co-op.
That is correct. Each co-op is autonomous by nature. They of course, they have their own guidelines that they'll follow. We're just providing a foundation that they can build off of.
So in effect, you've done kind of the same thing that Touchstone National's done. You're building a template. Will all of your members participate, or will they have the ability to pick and choose pieces? How will that work?
Well, they will have the ability to participate if they so choose. They're, like I stated, they're all autonomous by nature. They may choose to do so, but of course, a homeowner or a builder in the area, they would just need to contact their local member cooperative to find out if they participate and at what levels and what incentives they have to provide.
Okay, so we're building a template for them to be able to utilize. Okay, excellent. Kelly, we're kind of getting towards the end here. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the HERS rating. Just real briefly, what is it and how it works?
Okay, number one, the HERS rating is a measure of efficiency on any house. We can take any house from existing to new. This program is dealing with new, and the HERS rating is 0 to 100, and the different levels that Kaylin has specified would be different levels within the HERS rating system from 0 to 100, and the different levels would tie into some number, some particular number that is.
Ideally, this would be a program that it's kind of like from soup to nuts. I mean, it's the whole gambit of being involved in that from the beginning, I assume?
We start with the plans. I mean, the rater that is going to look at the house and work with the builder and the homeowner starts with a set of plans. Ultimately, they are there from the time that they get the plans started. They analyze we would analyze the plans, determine where it is in this HERS rating, and then the builder has to build it that way. And then there's verification to where we actually go on site 2 different times, and we're looking at it before any sheetrock is put up. And we're looking at things like insulation. Now, what kind of insulation have you put in? What kind of sheathing have you put in around the house? We're looking at what kind of windows did you put in? Are they low E glass? Was that specified?
But what do I end up with at the end?
At the end, you end up with a certificate that goes on your panel box, and this certificate is the showing exactly where you are on this HERS index scale. And then ultimately, that affects potentially your appraiser for the appraisal of the house. If you go to sell the house at a later time, this index number then goes on the multi-listing service. Could you get a better efficient mortgage? Yes. All of those things are pieces that the homeowner can get. They just have to pursue them. So what you do get is not only a sticker for your house that shows what has been done and verified in the building of the house, but you get a comfortable, energy efficient, and durable house.
So Kelly, you've had a lot of experience, you've looked at a lot of programs. Are we headed in the right direction here in Oklahoma with what we're trying to accomplish with our members?
Absolutely. The fact that you're putting in various levels makes it easy for any person to achieve any level of incentive or level that they want to achieve. If they have a lot of money and want to go to the absolute best, you've got that level. You can incentivize them. If they want to do an entry-level house, you have that available. And I think that's what's important in the program you put together.
Be able to kind of do what you can afford.
That's right.
Make that investment. Alan, any closing thoughts from you from Touchstone's perspective about the program that Kaylin's put in place here in Oklahoma?
Touchstone Energy's home program has been in existence for a number of years. It's used widely across the country, but frankly, you guys deserve, a shout out for what you've developed here. You've got a unique opportunity and an interesting combination of pairing prescriptive standards, equipment performance, and incentives at several different levels so everybody can find a comfortable way to participate in the program. I think it's fantastic.
Well, guys, I appreciate your time today. As you probably are aware, I'm going to attempt to build the very first Touchstone Energy home in the state of Oklahoma. And this is really the first video in this series as we're moving forward. And the very next one is based off of what we're seeing. It looks like that heating and air conditioning needs to be where I start. So join us next time as we continue our path on our efforts to build the first Touchstone Energy home in the state of Oklahoma.